Hey guys, so today we're going to start talking about the adaptive process, the process by which we dip into the vulnerable territory of life and are grown up by life itself. Last week we talked about the red energy and the importance of red energy in our own life as parents, but also allowing the red to flow in our children and the values that that brings. But one of the important parts of the red energy in parenting is in boundary setting, saying, no, not like this, try something else. It's the boundaries and the constraints of life that often precipitate us to grow up, right? We can't just act narcissistically and impulsively because there's boundaries on things. We have to act more creatively. We have to act more cooperatively. It forces us to grow up and be changed by the constraints of life. So total freedom is really not the goal of life. A balance between freedom and healthy, loving constraints is really more of what we're aimed at. So why are boundaries important in parenting? 4 reasons. The first reason is it's important to set healthy boundaries for reasons of safety, right? You don't want your 9-month-old to put a nickel in her mouth. Nope, not happening. You don't want your toddler to run out in traffic. Nope, not happening. There are times to put boundaries on unsafe behaviors. Also, boundaries can help our children be more healthy. They would often want to stay up way past a normal, healthy bedtime if we let them. They would often want to have ice cream every single night before bed or all these other things. But it's important that we put loving boundaries on it and say, no, I'm going to arrange the environment so that your face shines and you are radiant and healthy and vibrant. Let me help you with that. A third reason healthy boundaries are valuable is because it helps them develop impulse control. Right? If you allow their narcissism and their lower self to just do whatever it wants in all environments, they don't develop the capacity to go, hold on. Is that good for me in my long-term life? Is that good for the person that I'm with? Is it good for my relationships? We need to be able to, when these impulses come up in us, have some prefrontal cortex control to check them and say, is that appropriate to do in church? Is that appropriate to do with grandma? We need that impulse control. So that's a very important thing that you're offering your child when you set boundaries over and over again. And the last reason healthy boundaries are important is to help children into the adaptive process. This was described to me by Dr. Gordon Neufeld, one of my mentors, one of my favorite mentors. And this is one of the most powerful aspects of his work. And I've noticed that it connects very deeply to my mindfulness meditation practice, to my inquiry practice, and to my growing up as a human being. This is a very fundamental process across the lifespan. Now, the adaptive process is the process by which we are changed by that in life that we cannot change. So there are always circumstances in life that are beyond our control. Mother Nature or God created us in a particular way and we're lacking this particular intelligence or this particular capacity, or we're not nearly as attractive as other people or as tall or as smart or whatever it is. There's limitations on life always. Sometimes the limits are put on us by other people, right? They say, no, I don't want to go out with you. I'm not interested, right? No, you're not invited to the birthday party or the sleepover, right? And sometimes it's just the disappointments of life. We wanted to win the soccer game, but we lost. We didn't want our pet to die, but our pet died. So there's all these circumstances that are beyond our control. And if we don't learn how to sink into our vulnerability into these situations and follow our vulnerable feelings all the way down, down, down until we're done experiencing them and then the nervous system turns us out, we will become much harder in life, much more tight, much more controlling, less accepting of reality, less room for fulfillment to enter. So this is a very, very important process. Let me pivot back to the model that we were using before of the Parenting 1.0, 2.0, and Fiercely Loving Fathers, which is a 3.0 parenting style. Here, I'll compare it to the work of Diana Baumrind at UC Berkeley, who looked at different kinds of parenting styles and what the outcomes of the kids were on average. We have to emphasize on average because everybody's different. But So the Parenting 1.0 situation is analogous in her study to authoritarian parenting. It's really high on demands of the child being a certain way, but pretty low on responsiveness to the child and to the child's needs and to connection. And those kids ended up much more moody and more difficulty regulating their emotions. They were often unhappy. They were low in achievement motivation and low on social competence. So I think we all have an intuition that that's not a great way to be, being really intensely authoritarian with our kids. On the other side, we have the permissive parenting approach in her research. And I would say that the more unhealthy aspects of the enlightened parenting, or the parenting 2.0 approach, exhibit this. And here they're very responsive to children, very nourishing, but they're not good at putting reasonable demands on their behavior and asking them to step up and meet certain conditions and limits in life. And these children were much more self-centered and narcissistic. They had lower impulse control. They also were low on achievement motivation and low on social competence. And they had more drug and alcohol abuse than any of the other groups. So there's clearly problems with the permissive parenting approach as well. So Fiercely Loving Fathers is Parenting 3.0. We believe in both love and limits, right? The yin aspects of nourishment, unconditional love, space to be yourself, you're perfect exactly as you are, that's part of it. But also, you have a long way to go. Let me help you. Let me be a mentor to you. Let me set these healthy boundaries that will help grow you up. There's a great quote from Alfie Kohn where he says, "Spoiled children get too much of what they want and too little of what they need." And I think that's a good description of some of these other parenting approaches on both sides, Parenting 1.0 and Parenting 2.0. So let's get into the adaptive process now. I'm going to describe to you, first of all, let me describe the importance of this process. Your ego thinks you're small. Your ego thinks you have to get certain things in life to survive. It's worried. It's kind of tight and controlling. And it keeps your heart small because it doesn't trust life. It doesn't trust vulnerable feelings. It doesn't trust reality to provide what is needed. And so it holds you a little tight. And so what happens is each time you come up against limits in life and you are forced to sink down into your vulnerable feelings and accept those vulnerable feelings, feelings of disappointment, feelings of sadness, feelings of loss, feelings of powerlessness, and you have a good cry, or at least go way down into them, all the way down, down, down to the bottom of your tears, and then you emerge out the other side because the tears always stop. You're open. You're more refreshed. Your heart is larger because of that tussle with vulnerability. Your ego was telling you could not survive not getting your way, and it was ready to push and fight and whine and kick and scream. And this tussle with vulnerability brought you all the way down and out the other side. And then there's a feeling of resilience in our bones at that point, right? Oh, I thought I couldn't survive it. But actually, not only did I survive it, I feel stronger now. I feel more resilient having gone through that. So this is a very important process. If our kids don't experience the adaptive process frequently, especially early on in life, they don't have appreciation for the things that do come in their life, right? You have to have dissatisfaction to ultimately get to satisfaction. You have to lose something to realize all that you do have. You have to feel sadness in order to feel more joy, right? You got to feel pain and heartbreak in order to develop a wide heart that is capable of compassion. So this is a very necessary process in life. So let me describe it, how it happens in life. I'm going to give you a very easy example of a 3-year-old wanting a cookie before bed. So back to our traffic circle. Here comes the drive. I want a cookie, right? They're trying to affect change and get a cookie, right? You're like, yeah, no cookie before bed. We already had dessert earlier today. Like, I want a cookie. They start cranking it up, right? They're not getting off at vulnerability and accepting defeat so easily. They come around and now they're starting to crank up that red energy that we talked about. No, not having a cookie before bed, honey, I'm sorry. you know, and they start to get mad. Maybe they try to hit you, or maybe they throw themselves on the floor and have a tantrum. So they're exiting at aggression now, right? Attack. Okay, so here's what you do in these situations. You set a firm wall of futility. You're not having a cookie. Nope. You're a wall of futility, not happening. And then you immediately put a little bit of sadness in your voice and become what Gordon Neufeld calls an angel of comfort. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I know you really wanted the cookie. I'm sorry. What you're trying to do there is precipitate the tears. You're trying to move them from mad to sad. And if you can get that shift around the circle and then down into the vulnerable territory, and then bring them up on their lap, on your lap as they start to cry and they sob, and you sit there and you breathe with them and you say, I know, baby, I know. And you're stroking their head and you're holding them while she cries. And always they go down, down, down to the bottom of their tears. They have that long exhale at the end of a good cry. And then they emerge out the other side, refreshed. The tension of the day has been spilled off. They're more open. They're more connected. They're softer. You lay down with them, in bed, and they're really loving and open with you. It's amazing the different states that it can appear on the other side of a good cry. So going through this cycle of the adaptive process as often as you can, and as often as children will let you, is really, really an important process for developing resilience in life and this kind of big, invincible human heart that can't be shattered, that can't be broken. It's an incredible resilience that you help them develop. Next week, I'll talk a little bit more about specifically how to do this, a little bit more detail, where to do it, when to do it, what to be cautious about, one of the challenges for parents of doing this. So tune in for the next video. Fierce love.